Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm chatting with Taj Singh from First Nordic Metals. First Nordic Metals is a deal that's recently been put together with the combination of two gold companies, Gold Line and Barzley, which see them have a significant package of gold assets in both Sweden and Finland. With the recent run-up in the price of gold, I thought it'd be great for us to start kicking tires on some of the gold junior names and start hearing the perspective on what's happening in the gold junior market with various CEOs of gold companies. So guys, in this interview, we discuss what's happening with the gold market, the deal that First Nordic has put together, what their plan is to add more value and develop their project along, and what shareholders can expect for 2024. All right, everybody, enjoy the interview. Taj, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
So gold's been doing quite well of late, and my understanding is that you are running a gold company. So I thought we'd talk about gold to start. What do you think's happening in the gold market? What do you think has driven this recent bull market we've seen in the price of gold?
I think it was bound to happen. Everyone was waiting for it. All the rest of the ingredients that were supposed to be there have been sitting there for a while. And what's really happening now, what I find interesting with spot gold prices being on a tear since the start of the year, I think they're up over 15% year to date. You've got three kind of things happening. You've got global central banks buying gold. You've got obviously geopolitical tensions, and then you've got expectations of rate cuts by the Federal Reserve, U.S. Federal Reserve. Typically, gold is a hedge against inflation. It performs well in periods of economic uncertainty. So you've got these three items happening. The part that I find interesting is the fact that inflation in March was hotter than expected. So the rate cut that was supposed to happen sooner is likely probably pushed to September. But the fact is gold still is moving and it still is really strong. So it looks like a perfect setup for an absolute tear, I think, in the fall for gold price. I mean, you've got the major banks, Citibank calling for 3,000 by year end, $3,000 per ounce gold. That's just one of them. I mean, Goldman Sachs is saying it's an unshakable bull market. They've revised their kind of gold price forecast for year end from 2,300 to 2,700. So I think everything's in place right now. And those three main ingredients, the buying of gold by global central banks, geopolitical tensions, and rate cuts expected.
So the next obvious question is, we see all this momentum in the price of gold, yet many of the juniors aren't really seeing much life. We've seen a little bit of life in some of the producers. You've been working for a junior gold company. At what point do you think we start to see money flow into the developers and the exploration companies? And are you seeing any of that right now?
Yeah, I think it's really delayed. That's a great point. I even actually think it's delayed for some of the senior producers. I mean, I think the senior producers out there are trading as of gold $1,700. It's really not been factored in. I think a big part of that is the fact that during COVID, a lot of costs went up during that kind of time frame, and you saw a huge kind of cost creep at various operations. So what I think investors they want to see is, has this gold price, is it going to hit the bottom line? And I will tell you from studying it and talking to various senior producers, mid-tier producers, this change in gold price that's happened in 2024 is going to directly go to the bottom line. The kind of cost creep and inflation we saw previously through COVID, even with gold price going up, that's not there. It's almost basically gone, and you're getting all of the gold price increase affecting the bottom line. So I think we're a couple of quarters behind. I think quarterly results come out, Q1 will come out in about a month or so, in a few weeks / a month. That's going to, provide some solid confidence. Then another quarter comes out, and I think then it's going to be very, very evident of what kind of effect these gold prices are having. You'll first see the producers move, and then I think it moves downstream exactly to the developers and then the explorers. And I think when you get the real bull market, the real torque you're going to see is on those kind of explorers and developers, as we see it first starts with the producers, and you see the real torque on those explorers as they find new ounces and continue to develop them towards production.
All right, let's talk about First Nordic Metals. The first time we've had you guys on talking about First Nordic Metals. Can you give us a high-level overview of the company?
So First Nordic Metals is relatively newly created, a merger between Barzley Minerals and Gold Line Resources. Both were TSX listed. That closed in kind of late February, and the newly resulting company is called First Nordic Metals. First Nordic is very unique, I think, because it has control of two very prolific, very prospective greenstone belts in the Nordics, and the greenstone belts are host to very kind of high grade, big systems of gold that we see in Ontario, Quebec, at various places in the world, in Africa and South America, but they've been really unexplored in the Nordics. They're probably 50, 60 years behind, for example, Canada in terms of exploration, because exploration kind of opened up only late 90s, early 2000s. So we've got a huge kind of land package in Sweden. We've got one package in Sweden, which I'll talk about first, and then Finland. In Sweden, we are the largest mineral claim holders of any non-producing company, and I consider Sweden to be a tier one mining jurisdiction. We've got 100 kilometers of strike, so almost 100,000 hectares on, again, one of the least explored greenstone belts in the world. We've got a controlling position there. Right in the middle of that, we have our flagship asset is the Barzley Gold Project, which is a JV between ourselves and Agnico Eagle Mines, one of the largest senior gold producers in the world. So that's kind of our core, and we've got all the land around it that we own 100% of. So we actually believe there's high probability of finding new discoveries along that belt, and we own it 100%. If you took the same claim package in Ontario or Quebec, you'd probably have 8 to 10 companies sharing that entire kind of belt. We're near multiple active mines. We're a few kilometers from a recently permitted gold mine. Things are really picking up in Sweden in terms of giving a good push on mining. And then in Finland, same thing. We've got an asset that's got a resource of a little bit over 300,000 ounces, very just lightly drilled at this point. I think there's a very good path to increasing the size of that resource, very high grade, between about 4 and 5 gram per ton, is between the two categories of indicated and inferred. We're going to work on that and continue to build that up as well. And then overall, that's all managed by a real top tier executive team. We've had a lot of successes in the past. This team that's newly assembled and energized and ready to move things forward.
So I actually don't know too much about mining in either Sweden or Finland. Can you give me a sense of how many mines have gone into production over the last 5 years, or how challenging it is to work with the government because this is clearly a big problem in junior mining in general. And I have a theory that part of the reason that we're not seeing a lot of capital flow into junior mining these days is just a lack of development with projects. It's like if a junior goes and hits big drill holes, why do we care? Because if developers aren't able to actually get to production, then what difference does it make if somebody discovers something, because it's just going to sit there as moose pasture anyways? What's it like in Sweden? Is it challenging to get mines into production? Has there been a recent track record of mines going into production? What can you tell us?
Yeah, Sweden actually, especially the northern part of Sweden, is very mining centric. They're very, very skilled kind of in mining. There's probably, I'd say, upwards of about 20 mines active/historic within a couple hundred kilometers of us. So despite what people know, and some of these are private, but despite what people know, Sweden is actually very active in mining. But again, I will go back to my previous point. It's behind. It's probably 56 years, 50, 67 years behind, because the exploration just didn't start there. It was kind of closed off to mineral exploration until kind of the early 2000s. So it's playing catch up. I think that's the opportunity there to find huge, big gold camps. But I will say from our discussions with people locally and nationally in Sweden, there's a huge push really for mining. There was a moratorium on uranium that was held for several decades. It's now in the process of being lifted. There's a real push now here, Steve, for mining to get big in Sweden. And listen, there's a lot of M&A about to happen, close to happening in the Nordics. Finland is hot. Sweden's getting a look. And listen, if you look at Sweden compared to a lot of other jurisdictions across the world, There's a lot of jurisdictions in Africa and Latin America that can be very challenging, where all of a sudden your assets taken away from you. Sweden, Finland, they're not like that. It's a tier one jurisdiction. I would say the permitting process is very clear and transparent, maybe a bit more protracted, but they're open for business, and I think there's going to be a huge push. And that's what drew me to this company and this opportunity, is the fact that they are open for business here.
So this company, First Nordic, is the result of sort of a merger and a raise all concurrently happening between Barzley, Gold Line, and then you got a sort of a private placement happening. Can you maybe give us a breakdown of how much each group owns of what, and how the deal came together?
Yeah, so it was actually a very natural fit. The properties are contiguous to each other. So Barzley's sole project was the Barzley Minerals sole project was the Barzley project, which I talked about, which is in JV with Agnico as the operator, and surrounding them was Gold Line. So 50 kilometers of strike to the north, 50 kilometers of strike to the south was 100% owned by Gold Line, earlier stage assets, but similar. The early stage characteristics of what we've been seeing and the exploration work we've been doing look very similar to the early days of Barzley. So again, high probability for some new discoveries, but it was a natural fit. I came into Gold Line in September of 2023, and my goal was, let's see, in a month or 18 months, I think these things need to go together eventually. Those things happened faster than I thought. The founder of Barzley was Gary Cope, and we knew each other from past lives, etc., being in the industry, and we thought it was just a good natural fit to put these things together and make a larger company, larger capital markets profile, increase your number of kind of institutional investors, retail investors, market awareness increases. So it made sense, especially in tough and challenging markets. You get a bit bigger, your ability to attract capital gets better. And a lot of times you'll see M&A just happening for the sake of M&A. Let's take this thing and put this thing together and it's bigger. This is absolutely a natural and obvious fit to put these companies together because the land packages are absolutely synergistic. So that's how it all happened. And listen, the deal happened, and then we raised some money. So there's some excitement from some existing shareholders, some new shareholders. We did a small placement to keep moving on. And as we keep moving through the year, we'll look to probably do something slightly larger. As we see gold price move, share price appreciates, we get out there and market and tell them what the real story is.
So what can you tell us in terms of the average price paid per share, or sense of where the bulk of the money has been raised here? Because as you know, in the Canadian junior markets, there's a tendency of investors, and rightfully so, to be nervous about whenever they buy shares open market of a stock that, the group behind it issued themselves 30 million shares at a penny, and the stock's trading at 15 cents. And quite frankly, you have to be insane to want to invest in a deal like that. And I'm not saying that any of that happened here. I'm just pointing an example of retail investors that are nervous about those things. How can they feel comfort with your share structure?
Yeah, the capital structure, Steve, of both companies before the deal happened was very clean. Barzley at one time on its own, without all the additional stuff that's been added in terms of the whole land package around it and the Finland asset that Gold Line brought before, was a 200 million market cap company, not more than a couple of years ago. And it had actually, because of the markets we were in, as we all know, and you've heard from many of your guests that have come on, it was a very challenging market. Market caps of companies' share prices dropped rapidly. And so the deal actually happened at a time when both Gold Line was at one of its lowest prices. That kind of was almost a 3-4 million market cap company. Barzley was about 15-20 million market cap kind of company. So they were both at kind of the lows of the company, and it was effectively a merger of equals at those kind of prices. I would say at that price, that's probably the lowest those have been, and even lower than all the insiders have come in, a much lower price than even the insiders have come in at. So, that was something that was important to us to keep the capital structures clean. And I really do want to point out that when the merger happened, it was a very important point to note that this is a very attractive entry point because of that fact that you're probably getting the lowest price shares that both of these companies have been at, almost in its history, but definitely for years.
Okay, so what's the next steps for the project here? So or the projects, you got a series of projects. You're going to have cash on the balance sheet, post merger. What are we doing next year? I assume that we're going to have some drills in the ground, and on which projects?
Correct. Yeah. So we're going to have, we made a discovery at the Powbacken project, which is a little bit south, about 30 kilometers south of the Barzley project. There's already a discovery there. There's been a kind of a phase zero, I would call it, of drilling. A little bit over 1,000 meters of holes, again, confirming a mineralized corridor. And again, that looks very similar to the early days of Barzley. So we're going to be putting some drills there. We're looking in 2024 to put at least between 5 to 10,000 meters of drilling there. And in the north, it's an earlier stage target called Storyukten, which looks very similar to Barzley and to Powbacken. There needs to be some geophysics first flown there, and then some bot drilling, which is base of till drilling, shallow drilling that's done by many companies in the Nordics for exploration, kind of to figure out kind of geochemical anomalies and what the geochemical footprint looks like. Because a challenge out here, and again, the opportunity, is much of the land is covered in glacial till. And again, that's a part of the reason that exploration hasn't happened. So you have to do the shallow drilling first to identify a footprint, and then go in with deeper diamond drilling and core drilling. So we're going to focus on Powbacken, 5 to 10,000 meters at some point this year. And we're going to be also in the next, since the merger just happened, we're going to be looking at our portfolio and figuring out where the rest of kind of the money will go. We do have our project in Finland. We'd like to put some meters in there too. It's ready to drill. And it's already got an existing resource. We have ideas where to drill, but the main initial focus will be in Sweden on the Gold Line belt.
Well, Taj, thanks for hopping on here today. I think you got an interesting project, and I think that there's going to be some really interesting tailwinds here. There clearly are, and we haven't seen it yet pop into the junior market. So when that does start to come in, I think that the companies that have resources and grade and a history of drill holes and have moved their projects along somewhat are going to be big winners in a market where we see gold start to catch fire. So we're definitely going to be watching your story, and hopefully you'll come back on here in the future as you continue to get some big results.
Thanks so much, Steve. Thanks for having us. And yeah, it's I think we've got the right recipe here. Good jurisdiction, solid management team that's done it before. Ounce is already in the ground and ready to grow. Yeah, it's an exciting time for sure.
Thanks so much, Taj.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed this interview, please smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Also, let me know what you think in the comment section. Thanks, everyone.